Lawson is down in 19th, make that 20th.
All the time on this one, he's riding
wide and off, and Liam Lawson finds the grass. He was in touching distance, but it all fell apart.
The Formula 1 driver under the most pressure in 2025 is Liam Lawson, New Zealand's latest Formula 1 talent that's driving alongside a 4-time world champion. His journey to get to Formula 1 has been incredible, and he's been in plenty of different categories to help him make it to the pinnacle of motorsport, but it's currently going all south. He wasn't very liked getting into Red Bull considering all the Yuki drama surrounding it, and now with him finishing P20 in qualifying multiple times, and having 0 points to start 2025. The pressure is definitely getting to him, but there's a reason as to why his driving style isn't working and he'll have to adapt yet again. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. Would mean the world. The support's been unbelievable, and thank you all for making my day. Got plenty more in the pipeline for 2025, but let's talk about Liam Lawson's driving style. We gotta start with the junior career because Liam has had quite the incredible career and really journey getting to Formula 1. I usually start off at karting, but there's plenty more to go over to show his driving style that doesn't have to do with karts. As he started his Formula career in 2017, he obliterated the competition in New Zealand, winning 14 out of 15 races, showing off his talent in quite the dominating style. He was aggressive and precise, and just like we've seen him in F1, he fights kind of in a similar fashion like Max. He goes for it on the victories, and really nothing's going to hold him back. From there, he moved to F4 in 2017 as well, where he finished runner-up with 5 wins, showing that same attacking flair. And in 2019, he took on Toyota's Racing Series back home and won the title. So 3 different categories, did a very good job in all of them. Then he came to the Euro Formula Open, where he was also runner-up there as well. And really his trademark in all of these cars was that he was able to hustle them, very late on the brakes, loved a V style of corner. And it was clear the kid got talent, even in wheel-to-wheel, going for the overtakes, very aggressive. Like I said, a lot of similarities to that of his now current teammate. That aggression carried him into Formula 3 in 2020, where he won 3 races. And in Formula 2, it wasn't a spectacular 2021 and 2022. He was always up there with everybody, but he wasn't winning in a dominating fashion. But he did take 5 victories in that stint and finished 3rd overall in 22, which is what actually got him the seat of being a reserve and put him in Formula 1. But the biggest things that I didn't mention on the outside categories is DTM and Super Formula, where he really proved and where we saw a lot of the potential from Liam Lawson. These ventures are outside of the Formula 1 ladder. It's not your traditional way of going up like Formula 4, 3, 2, and then making your way to F1. This was a choice by the top people at Red Bull like Helmut Marko and Christian Horner to see if Liam is the talent they need for Red Bull. He was driving a Ferrari 488 GT3 alongside Alex Albon. Now this is a totally different beast to your typical open-wheeler cars. They're heavier and have to be driven in a different style. But Liam, like in all other categories, didn't flinch. He won 3 races, grabbed 7 podiums, and finished runner-up. Honestly, he should have won this season if a couple of things went his way. His style, yet again, was aggressive. Think very late braking, V'ing off the corners, and when the opportunity was there, he took it on every single overtake. And the DTM cars really rewarded an aggressive style and being able to brake as late as possible, as these cars aren't as tricky on their tires. Now fast forward to 2023, very close to him getting into F1, he goes into Super Formula. On his debut, he ends up winning. These cars are very close to F2 pace, but even quicker and harder to control. He stunned in Fuji, becoming the first driver to win in 45 years on their debut. He added 2 more wins, finished 2nd in the championship. Kind of like DTM, he could have won this year as well, if a couple of things went his way. He also was in Formula 1 in 2023, and this was the start of his career in the pinnacle of motorsport. But with all these series, and where Liam's biggest problem comes from, is the tire management, which is something that all these series don't have in common with Formula 1. It's not the same finesse to be able to extract the most amount of pace out of these cars. Before really these RB 2021 struggles, the stints he had at AlphaTauri and VCARB were actually very good. With Daniel Ricciardo hurting his hand, he ends up getting his debut at the Dutch GP, and kind of like 2025 where Isaac, Bortoleto, Doohan, got pretty much a baptism of fire with rain, very tricky conditions. Liam had the same, but he outperformed that car, ended up actually making an overtake at some point on Leclerc, and finished P13, and while that might not seem very good, considering that was his first race, it was not bad at all for a debut. Over 5 races, he really showed his composure. He beat out Yuki in most of them with the exception of Qatar, and he scored points in 9th in Singapore, which was quite the result for that AlphaTauri team in 23. He actually outqualified Max Verstappen in that Q2 lap, and he held off Alex Albon behind them. His aggression paid off. That car required a lot under the braking. It was a bit of an understeery car, and it actually suited the style that Liam had. But in that same season, he was then replaced by Ricciardo from the USGP onwards, but there was a lot of outlying talk that his contract would get him back in Formula 1, depending on how good Ricciardo was in the season. Now, as he made his way back, yet again, we saw that same success from Liam, scoring points in his first race back in Formula 1 in 24. And while he did lose out to Yuki in qualifying, in the race they were pretty much even, with Yuki only edging him out just slightly in 24. The car wasn't a frontrunner, so he was actually able to push the limits of this car without us really seeing the flaws here in this VCARB, because it is a very limited style on cars that you can't extract the full pace out of. But now, the RB21. Liam finally gets his chance in a race-winning car, and man has he struggled. The RB21 is a different beast to anything he's driven, and honestly, every Red Bull driver that's driven next to Max says that these cars are particularly made for him, and that's why the others struggle. And while that might not be true, because Max doesn't get to dictate how the car is going to be made, his input on where the car needs to change and where he can extract the most pace usually means putting more on the nose and less in the rear. Now, most drivers in Formula 1 cannot drive with a car that has a very loose rear. Even David Coulthard recently talked about it being something that's impossible for them to achieve. Now, Max is different gravy. The car is designed around Max's smooth and precise inputs and insane ability to manage his tires and really the rear while carrying speed into corners. It's a very narrow operating window, meaning it's twitchy and unforgiving if you overdrive it. Liam, as I've stated, has an aggressive style, late braking, hustling through the corners, and pushing the car worked in DTM, Super Formula, and even VCARB, but this RB21 is extremely sensitive. Data from these GPs shows that Lawson is losing a lot of his time in the slow corners, especially off of traction. He's too eager on the entry going into that late braking style, and while he does love being off his corners, he ends up hurting the tires off of exit, and his tire preparation has been very weak as well. The biggest problem he's had has been tire warm-up and keeping the tires in a good window while going for his fastest laps in qualifying. In the race, there's really not much to depict here. The cars are super similar in speed, literally from P20 to P1, so if you have to go from the back, with all the traffic, you're just going to tear up those tires. It's hard to really digest what's going on for Liam in the race. But in qualifying, where we see his true driving style come out and where it's really hindering him, it's tire preparation, being too aggressive on the brakes going into entry, and just overall lack of confidence. If you watch side-by-side onboards of Max and Liam, you can see that Max is just pushing the limits of the car. He's not afraid to go into that corner. While Liam is braking late, his approach on exit is super weak, and the gap just becomes bigger and bigger as his confidence gets shot more and more. With all these drivers, I think they come in with the mentality saying, I can compete with Max. But in reality, you're going against a 4-time world champion who's dominated multiple teammates over and over again, and they should really be looking at themselves to see if they can improve. And while it might sound like a big downgrade, he's got to beat the midfield before he can really look to Max to say, okay, I have a chance at this. Checo failed, Albon failed, Gasly failed, and by the looks of it right now, Liam will probably be another second driver that gets kicked out quickly. Yuki seems to be the replacement they're looking into, and I want to talk about Yuki's style as well in a separate video, which we'll talk about whether or not he's actually fit for the Red Bull car. It's very, very tricky to drive this car. Really, the best replacement at that time would have been Daniel Ricciardo, as shocking as that might sound. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Very tricky time for the New Zealander, but I hope he can turn it around. Please leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and peace.